Well, by ordering the Ghost in the Burbs t-shirts, you all raised $1,580 for the prison book program. That's $1,580 worth of books, knowledge, distraction for people who would otherwise not have access. I cannot thank you enough. I cannot tell you how happy that makes me. And to celebrate, I matched the donation, but not for the prison book program. Because you were all so generous with that charity, instead, I took some of the money I make on Patreon and donated $500 to the Wellesley Food Pantry and $1,000 to the Greater Boston Food Bank. Scary times are getting scarier, and there is no reason for anyone to ever miss a meal. Don't let those freaks in charge convince you otherwise. Thank you, everyone who bought a t-shirt. I truly appreciate it, and they should be shipped by November 12th, so keep an eye out for the mail. Now, I'd planned to share the conclusion of this story today, but as I've mentioned, I didn't really have a plan for where Thea was headed, and it turns out that I'll need one more installment to properly tell her story. I also thought this was just going to be a cozy paranormal mystery when the story began, but it turns out Thea is my first attempt at a cozy paranormal romance mystery. Once I realized Henry had an uncanny resemblance to Tom Selleck in the cinematic masterpiece Her Alibi, I realized we'd shifted subgenre. So now, not only do we need to wrap up a monster mystery, we also have to figure out where Thea and Henry end up. All right, let's get to it. Here's Thea, Part 4. Thea dialed Bruce's number the second she got back into her car. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. Jerk, she muttered, ending the call without leaving a message. She decided the only thing to do was drive back to the hotel and demand that someone explain how they could possibly justify closing the resort after one accident. Yes, it had been quite tragic and, well, horrifically violent, but it was a fluke. Kara looked it up. There hadn't been a fatal bear attack since the 1800s. This was sad and unfortunate, but it didn't warrant shutting down the resort for good. By the time she reached the hotel, she'd worked herself up with enough reasons to fill a TED Talks presentation about why it was ludicrous to penalize the resort for what was really just a freak accident. A police cruiser, its lights flashing, sat parked diagonally across the entrance, blocking traffic from accessing the drive. Thea pulled up alongside it, parked, and got out of the car. A startled Deputy Andy rolled his window down as he watched her approach. "Can't park there," he cautioned. "Then let me pull around," Thea replied. "Can't let anyone through," he countered. "I have to speak with Chief Martin or Detective, LeBlanc," he supplied. "Yes. Well, they're busy right now with the whole mauling situation, so I could take down your contact information and—" "No, I need to talk to them right now. If they intend to shut down the hotel because of this accident, not only is that absurd, it can't possibly be legal." "Who told you they were shutting down the hotel?" Andy asked, grinning. "Well," she hesitated, disarmed by his tone. "Cora, at the florist. I was just there to finalize an order, and she told me that the hotel will be shut down." "Cora," Andy chuckled. "She's been a gossip since we were in elementary school. They're not shutting down the place. It'll be off limits while they process the crime scene, but I bet you'll be able to be back in tomorrow." "Oh," Thea said, feeling foolish. "Well, that's a relief. Okay, so I guess I'll just wait for word that we can get back in then." "Sounds like a plan," the deputy replied, rolling his window back up. Embarrassed, Thea slunk back to her car. She was pulling onto the road when her phone rang. "What now?" she groaned. It was her dad. "Your grandma's got one of her bad feelings," he said, by way of greeting. "I know," she sighed. "What happened up there? She's insisting that I come collect you." "There was an accident, an animal attack at the resort, and a man was killed. It's awful, but there isn't anything to worry about. I'm safe." He blew out a breath. "You know we worry about you, honey, and I know Grandma takes it to the extreme, but when she gets one of her intuitions—" "I know," Thea interrupted, and she was right again, but it's over. They'll track the animal that did it, and it'll be fine. Silence stretched out, and Thea wondered if she'd drop the call, but her father finally spoke up. "That's the problem. She doesn't think it's over." If Thea was being honest with herself and acknowledged her own deep feeling of dread, she would have had to agree with her grandmother, but she couldn't admit that to her father. Dad, even if there was danger of another attack, it's not like I'm out wandering around in the woods. Neither was the contractor, her brain reminded her. Her father sighed heavily. I trust your judgment, but it's hard not to worry about you. Just be aware of your surroundings and stay inside. I promise, Thea said, smiling to herself. No hikes. All right, be safe. I'll calm Grandma and your mom down as best I can. Just check in with them at some point, okay? Thea promised to keep in touch and ended the call just after she pulled into the cabin driveway. Dark was quickly falling, and despite her reassurances to her father, she didn't feel particularly comfortable leaving the safety of her car. Gripping her keys, she made a run for the cabin. To her dismay, her hand shook as she unlocked the door. Inside, the cabin felt eerie in the waning light. She shuddered, taking in the view of the dark, ominous lake. She went around the cabin, switching on every available light, turning the windows into mirrors, reflecting the cabin's cozy interior. Her gaze landed on the fireplace. Her home on the island, a small attic apartment above one of her parents' friends' garages, didn't have a fireplace. It was a dark and stormy night, and still early. If she built a fire now, it would burn out by bedtime. 15 minutes later, she was in pajamas on the couch, snuggled under a cozy blanket, a cup of tea beside her, laptop on her lap. She typed bugbear into the search bar. An imaginary being invoked to frighten children, typically a sort of hobgoblin, supposed to devour them. The search returned. She clicked the link to Merriam-Webster, who defined it as an imaginary goblin or specter used to excite fear, an object or source of dread, a continuing source of irritation, a problem. Problem is right, she muttered. Searches for Bugbear, New Hampshire, Bugbear Monster Sighting, New Hampshire, Bugbear Monster Bearsboro, all returned results for the ski mountain and its surrounding hiking trails, but no monster. She deleted the words from the search bar, took a sip of tea, then typed, Bigfoot sightings in New Hampshire. Bingo! Bugbear must be the nickname used only locally because there were countless websites and Reddit threads and videos from people claiming to have seen the creature. You are kidding me, she whispered as her gaze landed on a link for BigfootNewHampshire.com. The site housed news of the creature, recommended viewing and reading lists, and many first-hand accounts. She scanned the stories, mostly of hunters, many of whom claimed to have heard or seen trees being uprooted or pushed over moments before seeing the monster, just like Jilly's cousin. A story titled Activity in Allenstown, New Hampshire, caught her attention. While squirrel hunting, a man kept thinking that he saw movement around him past the tree line, but dismissed it as his eyes playing tricks on him. As evening approached, he decided to call it a day. He wrote, As I'm leaving the woods and making loud noises, talking to my wife on the phone loudly, when to my left a pair of eyes bright as bulbs were standing there 8 feet off the ground. All I saw was a pair of eyes standing behind pine trees. I gasped, clutched my rifle to my chest, and for a split second, I was able to see it was on 2 feet, completely covered in walnut brown long hair. I started running and then realized I should not run for fear of being chased. I made it to my car on Deerfield Road. Thea did a quick search and found that Allenstown, where this incident had happened, was just a 50-minute drive from Bearsboro. She continued reading first-hand accounts, and while there were plenty of sightings, she couldn't find one instance of violence. It seemed that, though the Bigfoot creatures might stomp around and lurk and make people feel generally unwelcome in the woods, there wasn't any evidence of them actually attacking or hurting anyone. So what could have provoked the one to so brutally attack that poor man at the hotel? Henry implied that it had something to do with a car accident, that the creature had attacked a car. But again, why would it do that? There was rustling outside, and then it sounded like something, a branch maybe, scraped along the side of the cabin. Startled, Thea sat frozen, listening. There were crunching noises, like a large animal stomping through fallen leaves and branches. It's just the raccoons, she reassured herself. She heard a splash. Thankfully, whatever it was had gone down to the water for a swim, but whatever it was must have been pretty big for that much splashing. Closing her laptop, she stood and went to the hearth. She spread the glowing embers with a fire poker and decided it was safe to call it a night. After making sure all of the doors were locked, she washed her face and brushed her teeth and checked that the embers were just about dead before retreating to the loft, where she dragged a large upholstered chair over to block the entrance to the staircase. And after a couple hours and multiple Golden Girls episodes, she was finally able to doze off. She woke up groggy the next morning, She rolled over and reached for her phone. 9:30 a.m. She couldn't believe she'd slept so late, or so well for that matter. She'd been certain that the previous night's reading would give her nightmares, but it hadn't. Checking her messages, she saw a text from Bruce to both her and Kara. "We're allowed back in the hotel after 11. I'll see you both then." That was a relief, and it gave her time to get ready for the day. The cabin was chilly, most likely from leaving the chimney flue open all night. After throwing on a sweatshirt, she pulled the big chair away from the stairs and descended to the first floor. When she had a cup of coffee in hand, she summoned enough courage to peek through the 2 side windows where she'd heard the noises the night before. The woods really came up close to the cabin. The tree line was only a couple feet away. Leaning closer to the window pane, she tried to study the narrow, muddy passage. There may have been footprints, big ones, probably made by boots, maybe the home's owner, but it had been so rainy since she'd arrived. Surely they would have washed away. What if it hadn't been raccoons or Bigfoot trudging past the cabin the night before? What if it had been a person? The idea creeped her out more than the thought of creatures creeping around at night. She'd heard a splash, though. No way anyone was swimming in the lake. It must be freezing this time of year. Moving to the hearth, she reached her hand inside the flue and pulled the handle to close the chimney damper. She was on her way to wash her hands when something out on the lake caught her attention. There was something in the water, more than halfway between the dock and that island. "What the hell is that?" she wondered out loud. It looked like a person swimming. She squinted, then remembered she'd seen binoculars in the primary bedroom. Rushing through the door, she grabbed them off the bedside table, then went to the window. But it appeared she was too late. She scanned the lake and the island shore, but couldn't locate whoever or whatever had been swimming. Lowering the binoculars, she stared out the window, unseeing, lost in thought. She had a bad feeling, a really bad feeling. A memory came to her of playing on a dock with her friends, swinging on a rope and jumping into the water, seeing her grandmother watching from their deck looking horrified, her mother coming to drag her away from her friends. She closed her eyes tight and shook her head as if to shake away the memory, then put down the binoculars. This wasn't the Caribbean. This wasn't Amity. It was a lake, for Christ's sake. She turned away from the window and dropped the binoculars on the bed. Forcing herself to ignore her intuition, she went to get ready for the day. It was probably a moose or a deer or, Kara guessed later that morning, maybe it was a bear. You should tell Chief Walsh. Maybe it was the bear. Seems like a really far distance for them to swim, said Thea. They were in the hotel lobby, sipping surprisingly good coffee Kara had brought from the kitchen. "Oh, you'd be surprised," Kara replied dismissively. "I mean, it's weird to see it. Some animals go out to those islands in the wintertime. Anyway, what can I help you with today? I was able to dig out of my email this morning, so I'm all yours." "Great. I was hoping we could bring the tables out and arrange them for the party. I mapped out what I think works, but until I can see everything in place, I just won't be sure it's the right plan," Thea replied. Over the next few hours, the 2 women arranged and rearranged the seating in the lobby and on the terrace. They went out to retrieve the linens from a local business and stopped by the Bugbear Cafe and grabbed sandwiches to go. They carried enough place settings to lay out one test table, and by late afternoon, Thea felt confident they'd created the best scenario for the party. In her mind's eye, she could see the floral arrangements on the tables and the guests mingling at the high tops and queuing at the bar. "Tea lights," she said absently. "Good call," Kara agreed. "We actually have a couple boxes of candle holders. I'll just add candles to the order for the front porch items." Perfect, thought Thea. The opening would be cozy, understated, and sophisticated, just what Shelley looked for in a party. She just hoped the police tape on the patio and any hint of the tragedy would be gone before any guests stepped foot on the property. "Not bad," Bruce drawled, sauntering into the room. Buttoning his jacket, he said, "We can play around and finalize the layout tomorrow." "No need. This is the final plan," Thea replied, keeping her tone light. "Let's sleep on it," Bruce said, glancing around skeptically. "Will I see you at Jack's party tonight?" "We'll be there," Kara replied, as he turned and walked out the door. "What are you wearing tonight?" Thea asked, as she adjusted a dining chair. Kara shrugged. "Jeans and a sweater, probably. It'll be casual, and it's going to get cold tonight. I'm not in the mood to freeze to death." Later that evening, Thea pulled at the neck of her black turtleneck as she approached Bugbear Tavern. Music and voices carried across the parking lot as she hurried towards the door. Kara had been right. The night was freezing cold. She regretted not bringing her jacket with her. Stepping inside, she scanned the packed bar. A woman caught her eye and waved. Relieved to see a friendly face, Thea waved back and headed towards her. "So happy you made it," her realtor enthused. "How are things at the cabin?" "They're fine," Thea replied. "It's very comfortable." "This is my husband, Liam," Jill said, introducing Thea to the man beside her. "Liam Walsh," he enthused, gripping her hand in a strong shake. "Henry's big brother." "Tonight's entertainment," Jill added, smiling. Thea quickly saw an obvious resemblance. The brothers had the same dark hair and deep blue eyes. Liam's dimples weren't quite as pronounced, but he did have a similar strong jawline, though his was covered in a scruffy beard. "My little brother was right," Liam said, winking at Jill. "About what?" asked Thea when he didn't elaborate. "Oh, nothing. Are you in town for long?" "Just through next week." "That's a shame. Henry's a great guy, and I think he likes you." Thea felt her face get hot. "Liam, shouldn't you be up there singing or something?" Jill chided, giving her husband a gentle shove toward the stage. "Sorry," she apologized, turning back to Thea. "He's always been like that. He just likes to see everyone happily paired off." "Oh, that's okay. It's sweet," Thea said, willing her cheeks to stop blushing. "Jill," Maggie Alonso called, making a beeline for the woman, her husband Jason trailing behind. "I'm glad to catch you. What are you hearing about the dock expansion at the yacht club?" Thea noticed that though Jill's smile didn't falter, a tightness appeared around her eyes. "I haven't heard anything new, but I know they're going through all the proper channels with the town." Jason barked out an angry laugh. "Paying to make those proper channels open up for them, more like." "Just like the resort," Maggie agreed, as she seemed to notice Thea standing there for the first time. "Speaking of, has your employer learned their lesson now that poor Greg has been killed?" "I don't think that's fair," Thea began, but was interrupted by Jill. "Now, that's enough of that. Why don't you go get yourself something to drink? This is a party. No more of that talk." Maggie opened her mouth to protest, but Jill stopped her with a short, "Go on now." She blew out her breath when the couple finally walked away. They just can't let things go, but they mean well. Thea chatted for a time with Jill, then excused herself to grab a drink at the bar. "Get the pumpkin ale," Jilly enthused, stepping up beside her. "It's Jack's signature birthday drink." "Great party," Thea told her. "Thank you so much for inviting me." "I'm so happy you're here." "Oh, Jack," Jilly yelled, craning her neck and waving her hand. A big burly man approached, his face flushed with happiness and most likely that signature drink. "Jack, this is Thea, the woman I told you about from the hotel." "Happy birthday," Thea offered. "Thank you. Great to meet you. Sorry about that trouble up at the resort," he offered, shaking his head. "Such a shame." "It is," Thea replied. Intentionally changing the subject, she said, "I hear you're a captain." "That's right. I run tours. Scenic, historical. This time of the year, I do scary stories." "Thea's from Martha's Vineyard," Jilly enthused. "An island girl. Fantastic. Hey, let's do a nice sunset cocktail cruise this week. You won't believe the color this time of year." "That's so kind of you, but I'll have to take a rain check." "No, it's no trouble at all." "Hey, happy birthday." Henry appeared beside Jack. "If you're here, then who's manning the ship?" Jack asked, shaking his hand. "Andy pulled the short straw," Henry replied, giving Jilly a kiss on the cheek. "Speaking of ships," said Jack, "I was just trying to convince this one to come out for a little spin on the SS Bugbear." "You won't regret it," Henry said, smiling at her. "Oh, maybe. I'm not really a fan of the water," Thea admitted. "Scared of boats?" "Not boats, no, just... This lake is smooth as glass. It's nothing like the ocean," Jack insisted. "And no sharks," he added with a wink. Thea froze. Did they know? Had someone looked up her name and found out about the trouble with her grandfather and Amity? Could they have found out what happened to her in the Bahamas? Henry moved a step closer. "It seems like she's got a good reason to stay off the water," he interjected. "She lives on an island," Jack pointed out. "Can't get more on the water than that. I'm just saying, there's nothing hunting people in Pine Lake." "Stop harassing her, Jack," Jilly added. "Not everyone wants to tool around on a boat listening to prattle on about summer people in their mansions. Come on, let's make sure you mingle before you drink too much and get nostalgic." She pulled him toward the table, offering Thea a smile and eye roll. "You need a refill?" asked Henry. "That would be great, thanks." Thea replied. While she waited, she drew in deep breaths. It wasn't the worst thing in the world if they knew about her family's past, but it wasn't the best thing either. There were corners of the internet that had created hours of content around the strange coincidences in her family's history. She'd been recognized before. At least, her name had been recognized. She was trying to determine how much trouble this might cause her when Henry startled her out of her thoughts. "Bottoms up," he said, handing her a fresh pint. She accepted it gratefully and gulped down half of it. Usually, she wouldn't have had more than one drink, but she felt the need to steady her nerves. She realized Henry was watching her. "You all right?" he asked. "Yes, I don't know. Did you look me up?" Henry hesitated, sipping from his own glass. Then he said, "No, but out of curiosity, if I were to look you up, do I dare ask what I might find?" "Don't worry, it's nothing illegal." He tilted his head and raised one eyebrow. "No, I swear," Thea laughed nervously. "It's just that my family is a little infamous for some things that happened years ago." "Did they do something illegal?" Henry asked, grinning. "No. There were some shark attacks that seemed to be targeted. My grandfather just had more than your typical person's bad luck with sharks. And then, my dad and his brother had some trouble too. But actually, my uncle was killed by a shark, and it was theorized that it was the shark, but who knows. And then when I was a little girl, my family was living in the Bahamas, and something awful happened when I was on a banana boat," Henry finished for her. He looked both shocked and devastated. She closed her eyes and took another gulp of ale. "So, you've heard the stories, then?" "I'm so sorry," he offered. She waved away his concern. "It was years ago. It's just, it's a wild story with a bunch of crazy coincidences and, the internet." "I'm embarrassed to say I've read some of the articles about what happened," Henry admitted. "I really am sorry." "Thank you," she said, feeling completely humiliated. Some of those so-called articles were chock full of conspiracy and magical thinking. They painted her grandfather to be either a complete loon or some sort of shark whisperer. She'd gone down the rabbit hole herself and read a bunch of them when she was in college. She stopped reading when one commenter suggested that her grandmother had staged her uncle's death to look like a shark attack to keep her grandfather's legacy alive. "Well, that explains why you're not jumping at the chance to go on one of Jack's sunset cruises," Henry guessed. Just then, a voice boomed across the bar. "Shut up, everyone!" Thea turned to see Henry's brother Liam on a short stage at the side of the tavern. Standing at a microphone, surrounded by his band members, he went on, "This one's for Jack. Happy birthday, buddy." "Thanks, man," Jack yelled back from the crowd as the band began a cover of Captain Jack by Billy Joel. The rest of the night was filled with conversation and music, and Thea didn't think again about sharks even once. Finally, the band closed out the night with Ride, Captain Ride, most of the people in the crowd singing along. Then it was time for last call. "I'm going to have to get an Uber," she admitted to Kara, who'd joined her and Jill at a table near the stage. "Didn't Jilly tell you? She hired the drunk bus. No one's driving tonight," Kara laughed, shrugging into her jacket. "She chartered a bus?" "Chartered sounds fancy. No, she rented a school bus and got one of the retired bus drivers to haul everyone home. This party has a hard end at midnight. No stragglers allowed." "They're going to drive all these people home?" Thea asked, taking in the packed bar. "Not all. A lot of people walk, and there are plenty who didn't drink. It'll just be the lushes on the drunk bus." "What will everyone do about their cars in the morning?" The football team needed community service hours," Jill explained. "What?" Thea laughed. "Yeah, just leave your keys in the front seat and write your address and name on a little scrap of paper. They'll have your car to you by 9 a.m., or they'll be doing wind sprints." "Did either of you see Bruce at all?" asked Kara as they moved towards the front door. "I actually saw him talking to the Alonsos when I got here, but I haven't noticed him since," Jill replied. "He probably left early," Kara guessed. They went outside, and just like Kara said, there was a school bus waiting in the parking lot. Thea left her keys and address on the front seat of her car and climbed aboard the bus alongside Kara, Jilly, and Jill. The mood was rowdy. Thea inched along behind Kara looking for a free seat when abruptly she felt herself being shoved down. She let out an oof, turning to apologize to the person already in the seat, when she looked over and realized it was Henry. Oh, sorry, she laughed, shooting a look at Jilly, who smiled back as she continued on toward the back of the bus. Plenty of room, he reassured her, smiling with those damn dimples. The bus began bumping along to several cheers, and they were off. So, how does this work? How does the driver know where to go? Jim was our elementary bus driver for years. He'll do a loop. Might take him a little longer than usual because I told him and Liam that I don't want anyone with a long driveway walking alone to their door. This is amazing, Thea replied. It's become a well-oiled machine over the years. Hey, if you want to celebrate your birthday here, we can easily arrange the same. Oh, I'll be long gone by January, Thea replied. So you'll celebrate back home? Thea drew in a breath. I'd actually hoped to be celebrating in Colorado, but I'm not so sure that's going to happen anymore. What's in Colorado? A job that I'm pretty sure my boss has already given to my coworker. And if I can't throw a spectacular grand opening here and wow that boss, then my chances at the position will drop to 0. They bounced to an abrupt halt. Come on down, Kara, Liam boomed from the front of the bus. I need to walk you to the door per the chief's orders. So, is it a great job? Asked Henry. Thea shrugged. It's pretty much what I do now, but I could stay put in one place. No more travel. Put roots down, finally get a dog. A dog? Henry smiled. Yeah, it wouldn't be fair of me to get a pet now. I travel so much, and I'd have to leave it with my dad, and he's still on the water a lot, so... Dogs are the best, Henry said, the crinkly smile lines around his eyes fanning out. I have a dog, Sally. Thea grabbed his arm without thinking. What kind? She's a mix. Looks like a lab. She's 13. Hobbles around, but she's a good girl. You'll have to meet her. That would be great. Thea realized she was still gripping his arm, and she pulled her hand back. What's your favorite? Asked Henry. Kind of dog. Oh, I love scruffy little terriers. Sally's best buddy is little Scotty, named Hamish. That is really cute, Thea chuckled. Won't they need an events manager right here at Lakeview Peak? Henry asked. Bearsboro is a great place for dogs. Actually, they might. Well, they'd be lucky to have you. Damn those crinkly smile lines, Thea thought. They bumped along to several more houses, chatting about the trails Henry's dog liked to frequent until they arrived at her cabin. Cooper's house, Liam called out. Come on down, Miss Thea. She turned as she stood, intending to say goodbye to Henry, but saw that he was getting up too. Oh, she began, feeling a bit panicked that he might be so presumptuous. I'll walk you to the door and make sure you get inside safely, he said easily. Oh, thanks, she said, relieved. Bye, Thea, she heard Jill and several others call out. She took her keys out of her purse as they approached the door. So, do you think it was a bear, or... Henry shoved his hands in his pockets. We found animal prints. Most likely it's a bear. I'm sure it's safe enough, but be careful going out to your car in the morning. If it ever gets here, she laughed. You can count on those kids. They don't want to deal with their coach. As she unlocked her door, she heard Jilly yell, Kiss! From the bus. Then her husband's, Let 'em be! Came quickly after. Thea was certain she was bright red from head to toes. I'm sorry, Henry laughed. I'll probably see you at the hotel tomorrow. Just make sure you lock those doors. I will, Thea replied. Good night. She closed the door gently, covered her face with her hands, and sank to the floor, feeling like she'd just gotten dropped off from a high school date.